Hello, 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 and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to another live Manchester United live show. Looks like Manchester United therapy's back because I'm pretty peed off about yesterday. I'm not gonna lie. I'm annoyed about Amorim's comments and weird shot comments, and to be honest, if he thinks that way, he might as well quit. We'll talk about some comments that Amorim's made on after the game. We're going to talk about Manchester United, some worrying stats, wingbacks, the use of players, and more. We're going to talk about a lot of things, a little bit of therapy from last night. I guess this is right now. And look, I'm worried about AFCON. Last night just showed who we are under Amorim. Without Mbumo carrying the past matches, we've been in a relegation zone as we should yesterday go. I don't think we're that bad, but I do think when Mbumo and Ahmad go to AFCON, where are the goals coming from? If we can't even look like scoring versus 10 men Everton, whenever we play two fullbacks at wingback, we are crap. You've either got to go in January and find the best wingbacks possible for Ruben Amorim to make his system work, or we need to go back to bat four. You know, I'm worried. I just look at that and I think it's not just about formation. You know, you can play a back four and be crap. You can play a back three and be crap. What I don't like is about this back five is it's a back five. If you play five at the back and your fullbacks get high and wide and have attacking threat, which Mashvari does not have, which Dorga does not have, it can work. I'm all for playing a back five if you've actually got wingbacks that get up the pitch. But we play a flat back five. And that's all right in some games. But when you're playing at home for 80 minutes against a 10-man Everton, we shouldn't be playing this flat back five. We shouldn't be. It is worrying. And I think Amorim not adapting, not changing the game state was worrying. This manager's a one-trick pony, still plays five at the back, and at the, I don't know what BACM means, no tactics, five at the back, no tactics, nothing he changed in one nothing has changed in the one he has been here. Not quite sure what you mean by that, but I think I know what you mean by that. But look, Amorim made some adjustments with the long ball, and when we haven't dominated possession with the long ball approach with Lamont and Sesko, it's worked quite well. We know versus Brighton, Liverpool. I think the game versus Sunderland was very good. But the minute the opposition picks up what we're doing and changes their tactics, we don't have an answer for that. And the minute we're expected to have the ball and dominate with it, we don't have an answer for that. If we're not dominating possession, Amorim's plan B can work quite well tactically. But Amorim has no tactical adaptations in mind when we're losing or winning. It's just do the same thing throughout the 90, and it could work great the first 20, 30 minutes of a match. The opposition then changes, and then you see United struggle. I mean, that match wasn't as embarrassing as the Grimsby game. I think the Grimsby game was more embarrassing just because of who Grimsby are, and I think Everton are a great side. But when you're at home to 10 men and you're not even providing a real threat, it's worrying. It's worrying. I think the system of formation have always and will, and yesterday proved why, on top of Amorim, Amorim will not even change versus 10 men at home. That's the worrying thing. I'm not saying Amorim needs to change his formation and change his system, this and that. But I'm saying he just needs to be adaptable to game states. You know, he can keep his system of formation, his way of doing things, but then when you're down to 10 men, and when they're down to 10 men, and you've got 15 minutes left to chase a goal, why do you need 5 defenders on the pitch? Why not take a defender off and throw on Shea Lacey for 10 minutes and just see what he can do? Why? Do you know what? The only time we went to a back four was the last 3 minutes in the Europa League final. Not last 20 minutes in the Europa League final. They got about 5. And that was the closest we got to scoring in the whole game. It's the only time he's gone to a back four was when it was a final when there was about 3 minutes left. He was like, okay, I'll do that. That's the only time. And I sometimes just think, 15 minutes to go, you're 1-0 down. Take off one of your centre-backs. Instead of bringing on a centre-back, bring on another midfielder. Or bring on someone like Shea Lacey. You know, I know we don't have the best midfield options. I know we don't have the best attacking options there. But you're at home to a 10-man Everton side and we're not even testing them. It was worrying. It was very, very worrying. And I want to talk about that because I don't think, you know, there was no Sesko, there was no Cunha. I don't think Amorim had the best squad and the best squad options. And I don't think it was completely on Amorim. I think the players were shocking. But I do think tactically it was embarrassing from Amorim because he didn't change a thing against 10 men. And I think most managers would have changed or tried something. I think this is a good point here. Amorim can't get his own players to get the system to work. He's just not a good tactical approach. No one's improved under him. I agree with the first point in the sense of I don't think it's just that Amorim is a bad coach. I think that the players are struggling to understand what to do. And I don't think that's all on Amorim. I think some of it is just on the players. But the centre-backs, they don't know when they need to step up, when they need to go wide. I do feel like there's players that are unsure of what they need to do. And look, I think Amorim got exposed yesterday. Now, I want to talk about a few things because Amorim has made some comments, which obviously a lot of Man United fans worried. And he's talking about this season returning to last season. And he's afraid of returning to last season. La, 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 la. I just think if Amorim is worried that this season can end up like last season and he needs to quit, you cannot let this season end up like last season when you've had this much time with the players, you've got one game a week, you've got much better squad options. If you are afraid and worried that this season's going to end up like last season, then you might as well walk. That's not the kind of sign I want from a Man United manager. You might as well quit. Because Amorim said on the last game of the season when we beat Villa 2-0, I apologise for this season and told you at the beginning that there was a storm would come, and now I tell you that the good days are coming. He then says, 6 months later, literally 6 months to the day later, I feel afraid that we're returning to the feeling of last season. And he's not, take responsibility for that. Change it up. I know that, look, Sesko, Cunha and Bumo, new signings in, we've had a few decent results, we're definitely doing better this year. But you can change things up. And we've got better individuals, and that's why we're better this year, but he can change things up. The fact that Grimsby could outplay our system shows that anyone can. Yeah, to an extent. It is worrying, but I also think Grimsby were more up for it. I think some of that was on the players not being up for it. And I think I think if Le Mans was in goal, we beat Grimsby. I'll say that now. I think if Le Mans was in goal, we beat Grimsby. I've said over and over again, this stubborn manager won't change anything. I've already given up trust on him on the night we lost Europa League. Let him sack now before too late, period, says Salad Ibrahim. I mean, my head went after the Europa League, but I said I'd give him a summer window. I'd give him a couple games to see if we've improved. And I've always said, look, I try and be positive about Amorim, and I want to be wrong about Amorim, but I've always said my biggest concern with Ruben Amorim is he does the same thing for 90 minutes. It's not, okay, this isn't working, let me change it up. He just does the same thing for 90 minutes every single game. I feel like he just doesn't change anything. Like anything at all. And that worries me the most about Amorim, which is lack of tactical flexibility. But the players weren't up for it. We can blame Amorim all we want, and we can talk about how Amorim seemed to not have a clue what to do, and it's quite weird, like the way Amorim was just sort of standing there and not changing anything and not responding to the fact that Everton went down to 10 men. But we also have to look at the players and say, well, did those players give a crap? Because I don't think half the players turned up. I think the performance from some of the players was particularly worrying. Particularly worrying how some of those players did not show up. So I agree. The accursed wingback system, oh man, it drains the years of your life. We don't have proper wingers nor proper wingbacks just for one more 10. Do you know what? I don't like wingbacks. And look, I'm going to be honest. I don't think wingbacks is the way that Manchester United should be going. And I've said that for a long time. We're not a back five team. There's not many elite wingbacks out there. And I saw this, and I want to read this out because I completely agree with this. And I think Fraser's right here. Like, I don't want us being too negative because we might go and win 3 in a row and look better. I don't know. But I don't like the 5 at the back. I've not liked it for a while. I don't like wingbacks, or I'm going to be honest, because if our system is going to work, he needs wingbacks, not fullbacks. And we don't have that. We have Ahmed, right? Amorim needs that if his system's going to work, 100%. But there's not many out there. And is Amorim good enough to go, we're going to get rid of the traditional fullbacks that we might need if another manager comes in and get very back 5-style wingbacks? Because I'll tell you one thing about Ineos. Jason Wilcox is pushing Amorim to switch to a back 4. Ineos, and this was leaked, remember? Ineos, Jason Wilcox actually wants Ruben Amorim to turn into a back four and wants Man United to become a back four club because it's easier to recruit for. But for Amorim's system to work, we need proper wing backs. But those inside Man United want to push towards a back four, which says to me, why did you bring Amorim in the first place? You know. But Amorim needs attacking wing backs who provide output. You don't get that with Mazraoui. He's a very good fullback. He's not a wing back. You definitely don't get that with Delo. And Dorgu's end product isn't good enough. United have not committed to Amorim by buying out-and-out wing backs who cannot play other systems. So the solution is you sign elite attacking fullback wing backs who can play both positions, but there's not many options available. Very few options available. And also, if you do that, and Amorim goes, there's that risk of, well, can they do it in the back four? Or you sign players similar to Ahmad and you convert them into wing backs, but not many players want to do that. Semenyo could be an option, but Semenyo might not want to do that. So I see it and I'm like, you have to go all out and back Amorim and bring him in two proper wing backs. Or you need to say, we don't want to bring you two proper wing backs because if we sack you and go to back four manager, we won't use these players. And we know that deep down, those inside United want to play a back four. So what is the solution going to be? Has Amorim shown you enough to think if we give him proper wing-backs and proper midfielders, he will succeed? Or do you want to pull the trigger on Amorim, bring in a 4-3-3 manager, and all of a sudden, you play a 4-3-3, Mazraoui right back, Dorgu or Luke Shaw at left back, you've got Leacher, Yoro Martinez and Heaven as centre-back options, Maino, Bruno, Casemiro midfield three, Cunha up top, Ahmad on the left and Boomer on the right. It's a good side. It's a good side. That is the question. That is the debate, because what do you want to change? Going to 4-3-3 would it make you happy? I'm not saying Amorim should go to a 4-3-3. I think he's allowed to approach how he wants. But what I'm saying is when you're playing at home against a side with 10 men and you're down 1-0, why do we need 5 defenders on the pitch? That's my thought. It's like the last 10 minutes of that game. Could he have taken one of the centre-backs off and said, you know what, I'm going to throw Shea Lacey on and just have that one more attacker on the pitch that could make something happen? Because why do we always need 3 centre-backs on the pitch when you're against 10 men? And because Everton didn't attack. Everton didn't have a single shot after they scored. So we didn't need 5 players back. My thought process is you start with a back 5, you play with a back 5, cool. But every now and then when you are chasing a 2-0, or you are against 10 men, when you take off a centre-back, instead of subbing him with another centre-back, maybe you go, you know what, for these last 10 minutes, we're going to switch to a back 4, just to get another attacking-minded player on the pitch. Because I think it's draining how that game could have gone on for another hour, and I feel like we wouldn't have scored. I know Xerxes came close, but I feel like that game could have gone on for another hour, and I'm not sure we score. Seriously, what the hell happened to this club? As fans, we should not accept this. If the ownership won't keep up the standards, then we have to uphold them. I mean, there's a lot of Man United fans that are angry at people for wanting Amorim gone. And they think that, we have this cycle and that, sacking Amorim is not going to save us and we need to stop this sacking manager cycle. But then other fans are saying, yeah, but this is 10 times worse than all the other managers. Where have the standards gone? The big question is, do we blindly back the manager and we wait it out 3 years and wait for him to get everyone he needs with the hope it works? Or do we go more like Chelsea and just say, you know what, we've seen enough, he's not the guy, let's bring in another manager? Because we've done the he's not enough, let's bring in another manager, and we've not got better many times. So I get why many people want to back a manager and give him time. But Erik ten Hag's win rate was twice as much as Ruben Amorim after a year. Erik ten Hag did enough to buy that next season because he won a trophy and, he got us third. All Amorim's done is give Ange his only win in a final as well and come 15th and been hit and miss. And the mad thing is you could say, yeah, but if we beat Everton, we'd be 5th and we'd be praising Amorim today. And that's true. If we beat Everton and we're 5th, and we'd be praising Amorim and we'd be quite positive. Games with fine margins. But I look at it and I go, the players aren't good enough, but the manager's tactically poor. And I think both can be right. But I do think our squad and our team is good enough to finish in the top 7 next season. And I think if Amorim cannot get us in the top 7 by the end of the season, I think Amorim has to walk. And I think when Amorim makes comments that he worries we're going back to last season, then I think if you're going to make comments like that, you might as well quit. That's how I feel. I don't think it's worth spending another year pursuing wing-backs or converting anyone, but Ahmad to the role, he should change the team setup. I do think could he change the team setup, but he won't. He's going to stick to his way until he gets the players to make his way work. And that's do we give him the players to make his way work and hope that his way does work? Or do we go, oh, we don't know if we should take the risk to give him the players to see if his way works? Man United, I think, are looking to blindly back him. Alice, why does United stick with a manager even when things are bad? Like Real Madrid, I think it is sacking Alonso already and he's top of La Liga. I think because we've sacked managers and we haven't got better. I think that's probably the reasoning why, to be honest. We just sack managers and we don't seem to get better. So I think in that sense, United just we'll keep him. My mindset is this. I'm all for giving a manager time. Like, remember Ten Hag's first season? We came third and we won the Carabao Cup. But in Ten Hag's second season, it was atrocious and we came 8th. But we won the FA Cup. I backed Ten Hag and I was never Ten Hag out in his second season. Even when we lost 4-0 to Palace and I was close, I was never Ten Hag out in the second season. And the reason I was never Ten Hag out in his second season, despite finishing 8th, despite playing crap football, was because in his first season, he won the Carabao Cup and came 3rd, and he adapted and he did quite well. So I said, because of that, Ten Hag's earned a year under me and he's earned another transfer window. Ten Hag had the transfer window, which I thought was a good transfer window. Masraoui, Xerxes, Agate, Euro Delict. And then we were still crap. And were we unlucky versus West Ham because Delot missed an open goal? Yes. And they got a dodgy penalty? Yes. And then he got sacked? Yes, of course. But it was right to sack Ten Hag because the football was really bad in his third season. But I didn't turn on Ten Hag until his last season because of what he did in his first season. With Ruben Amorim, he didn't do enough last season for me to give him much time this season. Now, we're 5 games unbeaten, and I'm trying to be positive, and I'm trying to hope that Ruben Amorim can turn it around and prove me wrong, because I also think the players is a big issue, and I don't think it's a case of you sack Ruben Amorim, you bring in a manager that plays a back 4, and we get miles better. I don't think it's a case of that. I think there's a lot to do with the players and stuff. But the reason I have less patience with Ruben Amorim compared to other fans is what has he done for me to give him patience? What has he done? Because I think we have a good squad, and I think the squad should be finishing in the top 7. I get he doesn't have the midfielders and the wing-backs that he needs, but he's not done anything that's made me feel like, okay, yes, he deserves loads of time, blah, 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 blah. It's been a whole year of nothing. He's still our worst manager and just losing more. Palace will beat us to sack him, blah, blah, blah. I think we're going to lose to Palace at the weekend, unfortunately. Wing-backs with wingers as 10s is the stupidest system I've seen play with 4 midfielders or change the system. Well, I don't necessarily think it's the system and the form. I don't think it's the formation. I think it's the way he uses the formation. Semenya wouldn't suit the system. I think he would because he's a good player. I'm just going to scroll down the chat. Amorim showed his real colours yesterday and was not good. It's not Amorim's fault. It's Bruno's fault. I mean, you're nuts. I mean, I don't think Bruno was good. Played 4-3-3 under Ten Hag and 4-2-3-1 under Oli. Did none of you pay attention? I agree. It's not just we change formation and we get better. But our worst season in a 4-3-3, we came 8th and won the FA Cup. A lot of United fans would be happy with 8th this season. If Amorim gets 8th this season, a lot of Man United fans will be happy with that because it's progress from 15th. Our worst season in a 4-2-3-1 was 6th, and our worst season in a 4-3-3 was 8th. We go to Amorim's system, we come 15th. So I'm like, yeah, I'm not saying it's, we were still bad in a 4-3-3, we were still bad in 4-2-3-1, but we were 8th place bad, not 15th place bad. I think there's a big difference between that, in my opinion. When Everton got the red card, this was United's chance. We could have gone 5th. The red helped us, but Everton was still the better team. We got the advantage and they were still a better team. Amorim absolutely has to get sacked. Sacking underperforming managers isn't a bad strategy. Ask Real Madrid or Chelsea. Says Jacob. I mean, let me know down below if you're Amorim in or Amorim out. But I want to talk about Amorim's comments. A lot of people saying Amorim out. A lot of people frustrated. How are people accepting his performance? It's a joke. But yet again, Xerxes scapegoat. I mean, the amount of stick Xerxes getting, that's his first start all season. Did I think Xerxes was great? No. But Xerxes needs 4 or 5 starts in a row to get going, which we can't really give him. But with Xerxes, he needs a bit of time to get going. He's not had a pre-season or anything. That's his first start. So yeah. There's no manager world that can use these players, except maybe 2 or 3 who are ready to be starters. The rest are young or useless, says Rado. I think we could be doing a lot better if we use these players differently and profile them correctly. We got a super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat. For the Everton game, do you think if one of the wing backs progressed as an extra middle/forward man, it would have helped spread out the compact defense just like Maresca does? I agree. I think it would. I think if we had a wing back that was really comfortable getting forward and really attacking minded, and that wing back actually came forward instead of playing like a flat back five, we would have been much better for it. Much better for it. It's annoying because if we win yesterday, we're fifth and we're probably going to be quite positive. But I think it's not only that we lost and there's fine margins, like, because we're fifth and now we're 10th, but I also think it's the manner in which we lost. Like, there's one thing losing, and then there's another thing, I think, just losing how we lost. And we lost quite badly, and we lost playing quite badly to 10 men. It was the performance. And I think Crystal Palace away, 12 o'clock, we lose that. That's back-to-back losses. The pressure is back on Amorim. Do you think Amorim will be sacked? I don't think he's going to be sacked unless things got really bad in the next couple of months. I think if Amorim doesn't look like he's going to get Europe by about February, March, he could go. Because if Amorim does not get Europa League, I think that's a disgrace. I think Amorim is a good enough team with one game a week to get Europa League football. I think a lot of managers with this team could set us up and get Europa League football. So I think for me, I'm not going for Champions League, I'm going for Europa League. That's what Amorim needs to get. And look, I want to be wrong about Amorim. I want Amorim to turn it around. I want Amorim to do a good job. But when he's not adapting, when he's not changing much, it is worrying. It's the lack of adaptations and changes is worrying. Like, we ran right on Everton in pre-season. We did, and it's a shame we didn't do that again. It's worrying. I want to get into some of Amorim's comments though, because I don't like what Amorim was saying here. I really don't like what Amorim was saying. I think if you're thinking this way, you might as well not be here. Do you know what I mean? Let me get this up. Ruben Amorim, the last day of last season against Villa. I apologise for this season and told you at the beginning that a storm would come, and now I tell you that the good days are coming. Tells us the good days are coming. This season against Everton, I feel afraid of returning to feeling of last season. He's afraid that we're going to go back to last season. You cannot be the Man United manager and go, I think we're going back to last season. That's not acceptable. That's not acceptable. If you're worried it's going to go back to last season, you might as well quit. I'm sorry, that's not acceptable. It really is. It really is not acceptable. This was meant to be the easy run, and he's lost already at the first hurdle, but let's get it right. Players saved him versus Forest and Spurs getting a draw late on, yeah. His coaching losses, and he's out of his depth. I mean, a lot of people are saying Amorim coached a loss versus Forest and Amorim coached a loss versus Spurs, and the players saved him because the players are good. I mean, I think Eddie Howe would do a decent job with United, but I think Eddie Howe would still need a few adaptations and players in. I'm actually a Chelsea fan, and we're actually getting tired of the banter, by the way. Man United and other clubs, it's starting to feel more like banter in Crystal Palace. I need the good old days of solid bants. The thing is worrying is if we finish mid-table again this season, that'll be 3 seasons in a row mid-table. 3 seasons in a row we've not finished in a European place, and we're meant to be Manchester United. You know? Yeah. I tweeted something that's really unpopular. I think I worded it wrong. There's part of me that's like, should I delete the tweet? Because I think I worded it really wrong with the word talent ID. But I generally think that had Eric Ten Hag had this Amorim squad, we'd be doing a lot better. Because I think our team's good. Maybe that's an unpopular opinion of mine. I actually think our team's quite good. So Amorim won 9 games in his first 35 Premier League matches, and Ten Hag won 20 out of his first, So Ten Hag's won more than double the amount of games than Amorim in his first 35 games. And I think Amorim has a better squad than Ten Hag had. And I said, very unpopular opinion, but if Ten Hag had Amorim's talent ID, which is probably the wrong word used for it, /recruitment, instead of his SEG/ex-player obsession, I actually think he would have succeeded. Ten Hag left this Man United squad in the worst place he'd ever been, mostly due to his signings / him ignoring the physicality of the Premier League and the recruitment process. Spending money on crap and ex-players was Ten Hag's biggest downfall. Whereas I think with Amorim, maybe talent ID isn't the word because it's not necessarily young players. But I do think, with Amorim, like, he knows what players to get rid of, and he knows what players need to stay, if that makes sense, and he knows what players we need to bring in. Like, if you look at the players that Amorim's tried to bring in, it's they've been good players. Cunha and Bumo, they've been good players in that sense. Whereas if you look at the players that someone like Ten Hag tried to bring in, and you're like, oh, well, that's ex-Ajax, that's ex-Dutch, that's blah blah blah. You know what I mean? So the way I look at it really is, I think Ten Hag is a better coach than Amorim. Okay, look what he did at Ajax. He was in Champions League. But what cost Ten Hag, I think, was his obsession with these ex-Ajax, ex-Dutch, ex-players, these SCG players, and he was bringing in all the wrong kind of players. I think with Ruben Amorim, he knows who we need to get rid of. Garnacho, get out. Anthony, get out. Get rid of the crap. He knows Agati needs to go next. Yeah? A few questions over Amorim, his love for Delo, his dislike for Maino, his dislike for Xerxes, of course. But Amorim, I think, on the most part, knows what kind of players to bring in and what players to get rid of. Whereas Ten Hag would have got rid of Ahmad and brought in every single player from Ajax. Do you know what I mean? Whereas we won't do that. So that's one way that I look at things, is I think had Ten Hag stayed, let's say Ten Hag stays, Rashford's your left winger then, if Ten Hag stays. Cunha probably plays in the middle to facilitate Rashford, and Bumo on the right. Bruno as the 10. You've got Maino and Casemiro playing together in the mid. And then you've got your back four of probably Luke Shaw left back, Mazraoui right back, Leacher fit and De Ligt as centre backs, Lamons in goal. Pretty good side. You get replace Casemiro with some legs like Elliot Anderson, and I think that's a decent side. I think Erik Ten Hag's biggest fault was his just lack of, I say talent ID, but I think talent ID is really referring to the youth. I think it's more his lack of just recruitment, like brains. I think had he had the recruitment brains of Amorim of let's get Premier League proven players that can do this, I think he would have succeeded. I think maybe not succeeded, but would have had more chance of succeeding. And you could say maybe Ten Hag made the culture more toxic. Amorim was just like Garnacho F off, Rashford F off, Anthony F off, whereas Ten Hag, I guess, would allow certain behaviour. But then, Ten Hag fell out with Casemiro and Varane, and maybe Ten Hag wasn't right for the dressing room, wasn't right for the culture. I think Amorim is probably better in the dressing room. I think Amorim is probably better at knowing who to bring in and who to get rid of. But I don't think Ten Hag tactically was that bad compared, to an extent of he was more adaptable than Amorim. I just think that Ten Hag had no idea what we should have brought in. I'm not saying that I'm not saying we shouldn't have sacked Ten Hag. I think Ten Hag had to go. I'm not going to pretend that Ten Hag did well, but I do think if Ten Hag had Mbeumo instead of Anthony, when we were playing this team with Cunha and Mbeumo in, I think we'd probably be doing a bit better. Yeah. I'm not saying that Ten Hag would be doing lots better, but I'm just saying I think if we stopped buying these SEG ex-Ten Hag players and actually got Ten Hag some proper good signings, I think he would have been more likely to succeed. Maybe that's the way to word it. My biggest concern with Amorim is probably in possession. We seem to not have a clue what to do in possession. And this is, look, we had similar issues with Ollie. We've had similar issues with every manager. The minute we're meant to dominate possession, we're crap. Don't get me wrong. But look, this is what's been said. We've played 15 games under Amorim where we've had less than 50% possession. And we've won 7 of those games, drawn 5 and lost 3. 26 points in 15 games with less possession, 19 points in 24 games with more possession. When we don't have possession, we are a lot better than we do have possession. And that's something that Ruben Amorim needs to work on, is improving our in-possession game. Our in-possession game looks particularly poor. What is that there? Our in-possession game looks particularly poor. And that's something that we are going to have to work on under Amorim. It's the biggest concern is basic tactics and changing situations. Amorim's system can work if you give him the bombing wing-backs and the midfielders he needs, and we could be great under Amorim with time and with patience. We could be great under Amorim, but that is a big could in capitals. Could. With these wing-backs, with these midfielders, we could be great. It could work, could be fantastic, but ultimately, I need to see more from Amorim to think he should get the time to build this system. Because if you can't adapt versus a 10-man Everton, it's worrying. You know, if you can't adapt versus 10-man Everton, if you can't change tactics mid-game, if you have to do the same thing every game, that's worrying. I need to see a bit more from Amorim to say we should stick this out. Because if we were seeing signs of adaptability, I'd say, you know what, let's stick this out. Let's give him the wing-backs. Like, if he gets his wing-backs and he gets his midfielders, he will succeed. But I need to see more from him to think if we give him this and we give him that, he will succeed. And I just personally don't think I'm seeing enough from Amorim to feel confident that even with this signing and that signing and this player and this player, he will succeed. I don't think I'm seeing enough. And I don't want to be negative in that sense. But yeah. Look, Prem Proven doesn't always work. Kirkes, Morgan, Schneiderlin, of course. Of course, it doesn't always work, Prem Proven players. I think you need a mix. I said this in the live stream the other day. I like Ligue 1 players. I think Ligue 1 players transition to the Premier League better than La Liga, better than Serie A, and better than Bundesliga players, because the Ligue 1 is a physical league. And I think in terms of physicality, I don't think Ligue 1 is the best league in the world in terms of the level of teams, but I think it's probably that's the league that could compete best with the Premier League in terms of physical levels. The Bundesliga isn't physical, it's technical, it's fast, it's high line. Do you know what I mean? Bundesliga players flop a lot more. For me, we need players that could do it in many leagues. Like, there's players in the Serie A, like Manu Kone, that I think would do very well in the Premier League. Do you know what I mean? But there's also players like Angelo Stiller that I think is fantastic, but I would have concerns over his physicality in the Premier League potentially, unless you stick him next to like a Moises Caicedo type guy. I think we need a mix of maybe Prem-proven signings, like a Semenyo, like an Elliot Anderson, and then you could go out there and say, okay, Jeremy Jacket, Ligue 1, really good young centre-back, like Lenny Yoro. You could go to Serie A, Manu Kone, think he's got it to do it in the Prem. So yeah, we could go and midfield, go for Kone and Anderson, one Prem, one not Prem, Semenyo for we need transition threat, someone with pace, and then we could go to Ligue 1 and go, well, Jeremy Jacket can be that centre-back. That's what I'd quite like. I'm not saying every player has to be from the Prem, but I think we should get at least one top Prem-proven midfielder, and then maybe we look outside the Prem at the other one. But I think Ligue 1 is my favourite league to look at for signings. I actually think our Ligue 1 signings have probably been our best lot. Like, I think Martial, for the most part, was a good player. From Ligue 1, Lenny Yoro. I mean, who have Man United signed from Ligue 1? We haven't signed many. Man United signed from Ligue 1. But I feel like they just seem to translate the best. I'm thinking, maybe. We didn't sign anyone this summer. Last summer we signed Yoro, who I don't think had a great game yesterday, but I think he was good. The summer before, we didn't sign anyone from Ligue 1. The summer before, we didn't sign anyone from Ligue 1. The summer before that, we didn't sign anyone from Ligue 1. Cavani came from PSG. So Cavani worked. Euros worked. I think Martial is not a flop. I think we gave him crazy wages and it was injuries, but I still think Martial's a decent player. They're the last three players we signed from the French league. And Zlatan, Martial and Euro are the last four players we signed from the French league. I mean, compared to the players that we signed from the Eredivisie and the Bundesliga, you know, we're looking all right there. From the Eredivisie, it's Van der Eyck, it's Anthony. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, Bundesligas, you're looking at your Sanchos. So I think maybe. Anyway, oh yeah, a guy. He's not been great. I forgot about that one. Anyway. I forgot about that one. I just looked over it. I didn't think we signed anyone. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up the live stream here, but big up everyone for watching. See you next time. Bye.